if you do not feel congruent and aligned to who you are at the very heart and soul of you, and you continue to do behaviors that sabotage your deepest held values, then you cannot feel great about yourself. And you only will allow the level of success to come to you that you feel worthy of receiving.
Any successful relationship starts with finding your center, the truth at the core of who you are. Only then can you develop the ability to truly connect with someone else. Concentric is about aligning with people who share a common center. This show gives you the tools and the skills to do just that through practical training, real life stories and examples, and in-depth interviews with people who have taken this journey and come out the other side better for it. Welcome to Concentric. We're glad you're here. Welcome to episode 1 of Concentric. We're so excited to have you here on this journey with us of creating transformational relationships in all areas of life. My co-host on the show, Gary David Rodriguez, is an absolute master at helping people shift certain core elements within themselves and then empowering them to go on and build alignment with the important people in their life. And that's exactly what we're doing here with this show. We thought it was important to start with why relationships are important in the first place, and then go through some foundational concepts that everything else builds upon. For instance, Gary goes through the drama triangle and the creator triangle. And understanding those two concepts, that's going to help you shortcut your journey to real relationship growth. By the way, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcasting platform, feel free to jump over to the YouTube version just to see a couple of diagrams that Gary goes through when he's talking about these concepts. All right, let's dive in. Welcome to episode number 1 of Concentric. I'm so excited to be here. I'm your host, Jason Croft, with your host, Gary David Rodriguez. Gary, how's it going?
It's great. How are you?
I am wonderful. So excited to dig into this. I have 1,000 topics that I want to cover, in this show. I think a really important foundational one, though, is the whole aspect of why this subject of relationships, why relationships are important in the first place, and why we need to be good at them, right? So can you just sort of answer that for folks from the very beginning, for people who are like, yeah, I guess they're important, but what's the big deal?
Well, they're kind of everything. When you think about that, how we developed our personalities to be what we are, we were deeply imprinted from our family of origin, from the dynamics of our mother and father, from their capacity to self-lead themselves, and for them to have a healthy, dynamic relationship and create a culture where we would thrive as adults. Many of us didn't have that. So a lot of some of the struggles that we face internally inside of ourselves, I'm not saying that it's all that, but the foundation of it rests there. So some of us has taken that foundation and gone, okay, I'm going to do the polar opposite of that. Or some of us are acting out those qualities from a perspective of being a little unconscious about what's really running the show behind the scenes. So when we look at the importance of them, look at the impact we have on our kids. I don't know of one parent that walks out of parenting unscathed by guilt because of what they wanted to do, but it kind of didn't come out that way.
I don't know, Gary. I'm basically perfect as a parent, so I don't know what you're talking about, but I understand for other people, sure.
If anyone could be, it would probably be me. But we look at that. Then we look at our relationships. How fully expressed are we? How unconditionally loving do we have our relationships? What conflicts continue to show up historically that creates then a culture for our children to grow up in, which sometimes isn't as optimal as it could be. Then we look at what our work relationships, and we go into our jobs, and there will be 1, 2, 3, maybe people at an upper level management position that make us insane and we can't figure out why. Or we'll have coworkers that always are constantly rubbing us the wrong way. these are the places in which we spend 24 hours of our day with. And we look at the thing that makes us the most happy is when we are aligned to our own greater sense of purpose and values, and when our relationships are actually working harmoniously. And when they're not, it's stressful, it's painful. So rather than walk into this gallery of possibilities for either joy or pain, we need to walk into the context of relationship as fully educated, fully equipped as we possibly can to navigate who we are through the complexities of what our relationships often are, both at work and in the home.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to cut you off, but I think
No.
I think you mentioned that sometimes, however we're raised, some of that early imprinting, either we're just subconsciously, we're just going through those motions and now we're going to be just like the parents or how they raised us, or we're doing the polar opposite. I think in either scenario, though, for the vast majority of people, it's a reactive aspect, either the same or polar opposite. It's reacting. And I think what's so great about what you help people go through is to become proactive, right? Make a decision how you want to be as a person in these relationships and move forward. And in case anyone out there is, hearing and listening to that description that you gave, the importance of relationships, and think, yes, I agree, but my goodness, that seems daunting. I think I want to make sure that and say really quickly something that you mentioned in the intro episode is that the other great thing that you teach, not just the importance of this stuff, but how quickly things can change with the ways, basically with the tools that you have for folks. So anyone out there who starts to get that overwhelmed, just hearing the description of all of relationships and past and this and moving forward, having gone through some of these processes that Gary has, I promise you, it becomes really effective really quickly.
And the thing I want to say, I want to be and always support people in being completely 100% transparent. So I wanted to share with everyone that this is not a journey that I studied. This is a journey that I lived through. And so I had a whole heap of drama and trauma throughout my childhood. If it could have happened to a kid, it happened to me. And I survived all that, which was awesome. And but I survived it only by actually thinking, okay, what creates crazy? Like what creates insanity? What creates alcoholism? What creates people to molest children? What creates that? I've lived through the effects of all of that. And then here I am as an adult. Now what? Do I walk into my adult years from being a teenager just, addicted to substances because I can't stand the emotional pain? What do I do with my life? And I remember walking into my 18th year on the planet, feeling like I was the most broken person that could ever exist, and that I could not survive the daunting task of living in the world as an adult. Like I couldn't do it. So I was a bit suicidal. I went through all of that. But what I want to say is, I had this experience, which I think all of us has a distinct purpose for being here. And my distinct purpose was obviously to find a way to start unraveling what had happened. No one in my family system was ill-intended. No one looked at me and said, oh, I think I'm going to harm Matt over there. No one did that. It was the unconscious wounds of their family system playing out in their adult life that they absolutely could not control. So I made it, I guess, a purpose for me to find some way. And that's exactly what I did. My relationships up till I was about 40 were well and truly a train wreck. I was victim. it's their fault. There's nothing wrong with me. I was all of that until I remember the first time I went to therapy with a partner. After the first session, the therapist fired us because of me. Because the therapist looked at me and said, well, what do you think's wrong? No, it's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. And then he goes, well, what did you get out of the session? I said, absolutely nothing. And he fired us. I was well and truly the largest victim, most arrogant person in the room. The bottom line is I went on a quest to find out how I can be in a relationship, find love, feel safe enough to love, feel powerful enough to be loved, and allow myself to finally be vulnerable and receive. It took a very long time. So I went on this quest to find a way. And what our show's really about is this, 30, 40-year journey of me discovering the tools that actually worked, not in theory, not in academia, but in the literally the trenches of my own life. And then I've coached over 11,600 people worldwide, and I've proven it 11,600 times, plus all the organizations that I've trained in and gone in and worked on relationships, from executive teams down to managerial teams, down to staff. These tools work. And the whole premise is to give out what works, not the fluff, not the theory, but what works.
Yeah. And I think, in the most succinct manner, in the shortest amount of time, not that it's a race, not that, it's this, hey, 5 minutes or less and now you're off to the races and you're good. But it's also not, hey, let's talk about this for the next 14 years, let's get to this and let's dig in. There's almost always going to be more to help level up and dig deeper. But that was a really important distinction to me with your experiences. Yes, you've lived this. Yes, you've used this for yourself to get through life and everything. But then you've also proven all of this out over so many people that you've helped along the way. And those are two very different things, from business to coaching, consulting, helping people in relationships. It's one thing to do it yourself, but to be able to teach others and get the same or similar results. That's a big distinction.
Well, the biggest laboratory was, I've been in a very successful 22-year relationship, and I used literally everything I knew to face myself in the relationship and pull through to the other side. And one thing we made a commitment to do when we entered the relationship is neither one of us were going to bolt, neither one of us were going to leave until we were able to take accountability and responsibility for the part we played in co-creating whatever it was that we did. And we were going to own it and do our best to evolve beyond that particular behavior or lack of awareness or narcissism to get to the other side so that we could have conversations that were respectful, honorable, with the sole intent of creating mutual understanding. And that brings me to this next topic of the drama triangle, because when I found myself playing, victim, and then whoever I was blaming was the villain, and then I generally tried to find some sort of outside source to bounce ideas off or talk to about it, which would become the hero. And that is fundamentally the definition of the drama triangle. And there's zero resolution in that dynamic. One person plays victim, the other person you find is the villain. Now the villain and the victim change roles throughout the dynamic, because the villain says, oh no, it's not my fault. If you wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, then I wouldn't be in this position. And the victim then becomes the villain in the villain's eyes. So they go back and forth in this blame, shame kind of dynamic, finding someone else to agree with them. Eventually, the victim will turn the hero into a villain as well, because the hero can never save the victim completely. And so the victim ends up being disappointed in time that they still don't feel any different. They can't feel different because no one has a responsibility for their feelings but them.
Yeah, and this distinction here too is that, as you learn about this very foundational aspect to relationships, is that you've got each of these roles, right? It's not a matter of like, oh, I need to get to the hero. You need to get completely out of this triangle, period. This isn't like shifting and changing hats, right?
No, it is literally the dynamic that 99.9% of the people play. And I need to say this to you. This is not a destination. This is a journey of choice in the moment, because none of us will be perfect at it, but we can catch ourselves faster, stay in the drama triangle less each time we become aware, because habits are born through repetition. So this is about a habit of accountability, a habit of self-awareness, a habit of self-leadership, and then a habit of discipline to be able to bring ourselves back to where there is the possibility of resolution. And that's in the creator triangle, where some of the creator takes responsibility for the emotional states they're in. Now, let me explain that for a moment. Because when something happens outside of you, you do not have control over what other people say or do. But you've got absolute control over the meaning you're going to ascribe to it. Someone could do something really unkind to you, and you can look at that and go, okay, well, it's all about me. They intended this, the blah, 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 whatever story you want to make up. Or you can look at that and go, there may be multiple things occurring in that person's life right now that I don't see or can't see. I may have triggered some old ancient wound for them that they can't see or are unaware of. I can frame it in a way that has some level of openness for compassion, for understanding, and for curiosity to find out what's actually happening at the deep structure that caused a person to act or behave like they did. When I take accountability and go, okay, I can frame it in another way. I can frame it through a lens of, okay, I'm curious about what's actually driving this behavior, the emotional states that are driving this behavior. That winds me down off of the ledge of I'm a victim and I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to find someone to talk to about it and how horrible that person is and get them to agree with me so that I feel more vindicated. So when we stop that and then we go to, okay, I'm going to coach myself. What else could it be? I'm going to ask myself strategic questions to break myself out of the habit of going into victim. I'm going to educate myself as well to gather more tools about communication, conflict resolution, problem solving. And then I can perhaps re-engage with that person in a way that is at a higher level of accountability and a higher level of wanting to have mutual understanding. When I'm able to do that, I step out completely out of the drama triangle. Now, there are going to be people, there's no resolution that you can reach. They're too activated, right. They're too outraged, they're too triggered in whatever way, shape, or form they are.
Or they've done something that you cannot tolerate. Like it doesn't matter the why, what they've gone through, and you just have to walk away.
You just have to walk away.
But doing it in a way that's, again, proactive, that is empowering, not victim, and then you keep them in your whole vortex, right? When you do that.
For me, it's like, why would I go into the backyard of a pit bull with rabies that's off leash? Why would I do that? Right? I would be, there's a pit bull in the backyard with rabies. I'm not going to go in the backyard. What some people do, though, is they want to save the pit bull with rabies in the backyard. And so there is this other dynamic of getting your identity met by saving or attempting to save someone else who hasn't even invested in themselves to be saved. Yeah. There's multiple ways, there's multiple dynamics for all of this. But the bottom line is what causes the most suffering is that if I have to walk away from someone and I have to really create a very strong boundary, which is completely appropriate. The thing that creates the suffering is the endless wrangling in the mind of still the drama triangle. They did this to me, they did that to me, they did X, Y, and Z behaviors. And running that over and over and over again, that's what causes that thought possession and that sort of entrapment in the drama triangle. When we're able to truly look at another person, regardless of what they've done, and frame it differently, we start to wind ourselves down off that kind of habit of being in the drama triangle internally inside of our own heads. A lot of times when I've done coaching, people will come to me and they'll be thought possessed, and they can't move off of the thought of being a victim. They're no longer engaged with that person physically, but they can't move off the thought pattern of
they're telling the same story, and
and hero. Can't do it. And so that's also where a lot of suffering that I have seen with clients over the years happens, is they can move away from that relationship, but they still have it active inside of their thoughts. And so this is about truly getting free, going up to a little bit of a higher logical level and being able to create resolution in a way that's going to actually bring more peace than angst. So the idea of victim, villain, hero is something that we have to become majorly alert to. And then the idea of accountability, creator, I'm going to coach myself, I'm going to study on how to actually free myself from this dynamic, is kind of the next step of where people have to become alert to. All of the information that's going to be contained in every episode that we do is going to be decoding what keeps us thought possessed in a victim position, and then tools for how to put us into a creator position, so that the whole sort of concentric aspect of every show is going to be based upon, am I in the creator triangle or am I in the drama triangle? And how do I leave this one, neutralize this one more, impact and strengthen the creator triangle more?
Yeah, and to get perfect clarity for folks, what are those roles of the creator triangle? What's that?
The creator triangle is literally taking responsibility. So it is, you own the power in that particular role. I think that we look at our choices, how we respond, and we focus on outcomes. Like, what is it that we really want to achieve? The most important thing is the coaching. Like, how am I going to do that? And that is where we actually ask ourselves strategic questions, which we're going to be going through. The questions to ask yourself, to coach yourself. You may choose to get some coaching work done, and that will just sort of fast track that. The other is more of the educational aspect of we need to be able to educate ourselves on how we can do that. The coach is more about, yes, let's get the information, ask ourselves strategic questions, and yes, we can do. The rest of it is the other aspect is being educated in the systems and strategies to do that, which is what actually the whole show is about, is how to be in the creator triangle. And so that's kind of where we're going with every single episode. We're going to be giving tools on how to do that. And it's personally, I feel like the greatest legacy that we could ever leave, and I don't want to get too far out there, but I think I will anyways, is that at the end of our lives, we're going to look back on our lives, and we're either going to see a blessing that's left in every relationship because of how we chose to evolve ourselves, or we're going to have regrets for how certain relationships ended up still unresolved, unhealed, unspoken to, uncommunicated with. And at the end of our lives, really, there's no more denial. There's no more we can sit back and go, oh, well, someday. No, at that time, either we've done it or we haven't done it. So this is about setting ourselves up to have the most powerful life we can have. I could speak for a long time on that, But I think that if you look at the levels of success that people want to achieve, whether it's financial success, spiritual success, mental success, emotional success, success as a parent, all of it is based upon this one thing: your relationship with you. If you do not feel congruent and aligned to who you are at the very heart and soul of you, and you continue to do behaviors that sabotage your deepest held values, then you cannot feel great about yourself. That is the number one wealth any of us could ever have. And you only will allow the level of success to come to you that you feel worthy of receiving. So if we're misaligned, if we are out there destroying relationships, either in our heads or in our words or in our actions, we can't lie to this energetic field that is the subtotal of every emotion we live in, every thought we think, every word we speak. And it has been proven that this field is measurable 15 feet out from your body, that people feel in your presence. So if you want more success in your life, then in other words, we have to get our shit together. We have to actually step into the creator triangle and really start looking at, I'm going to stop blaming others and other things for my lack of success. I'm going to start looking at how I can get more aligned to me, discover me, and have every thought, word, and action be in that alignment. And then I will kick it.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's a deep dive. I want to hit that in the next episode. Because I think that's the next step. I think this foundation that you've laid out in the vocabulary, right? Between between the drama triangle and the creator triangle is so key and important. And that next foundational element is the importance of getting right with yourself. That relationship with you is everything. And let's dig deep in the next episode for sure.
I would love that.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Concentric. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd certainly like a great review from you on your favorite podcasting platform. But more than that, what really makes a difference to a show like ours is a recommendation to someone who would love this show like you do. Word of mouth referrals to your network and your podcast devouring friends is incredibly helpful to the growth of this show. For episode links and info, go to concentricshow.com. Thank you so much, and remember to keep building alignment to build a better life.